Recording in progress.
Morning, colleagues, honorable members. I want to welcome all of you and everybody in the meeting, the ministry, and the team. The time now is exactly 9, which is the scheduled time of our meeting. Masikole, do we have any apologies?
Good morning, Chair. Good morning to honorable members, TM and colleagues. Chair, we have a slide. We don't have absenteeism per se, Chair, from honorable members. Honorable Zungula has requested that he be excused at 10. He's attending our public hearings. There's also an apology from the minister, Chair, and there's also a request from the TM to be excused at 10, Chair. Those are just the notifications, Chair, and then few apologies, Chair. Thank you so much, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Yes, indeed, I've received the minister's written apology due to ill health. There's a reason explained. You are here because Ms. Moy is on study leave, and then you just cited Mr. Zungula's one and the fact that the deputy minister might want to leave at 10. Hopefully by then she would have led the team. Those are the apologies we have, colleagues, and we only have one item on the agenda, which is the 10-year review of the National Development Plan. Do we accept those apologies in order to proceed to the next item?
Accepted, Chair. Yes, Chair, accepted.
Thank you, honorable members. We then proceed. May I then immediately, without any waste of time, welcome the ministry as led by the Deputy Minister of DPME, Deputy Minister Kekana, to make her introductory remarks and immediately conduct the orchestra with the team of NPC to make the presentation. Over to you, Deputy Minister.
Chairperson, thank you very much, and let me greet members of the Portfolio Committee. I also want to put on record, Chair, that Professor Tinyiko Maluleke, as the Deputy Chair of the Commission, is currently in a meeting. The TUT executive meeting is sitting. He wished to be part of us, but anyway, we also have members of the National Planning Commission who are part of us here, and the commissioner will be leading is Commissioner Ramatsetse, who will be doing the presentation. We also have in our midst Commissioner Naidu, Commissioner Mulukwani, as well as Commissioner Ntongwana. The Portfolio Committee will be aware that the Secretary of the NPC has gone into greener pastures, but also dealing with almost similar issues at the level of the UN, the SDGs, Dr. Masiteng, and with us is the Acting Deputy Secretary, who is part of the NPC, Mr. Ashraf Karim. So this is the team chair that will be taking the Portfolio Committee through. Like I said, Chair, my daughter is in AFDA here in Cape Town. There's a festival, what do they call it? Graduation festival for film producers and all these things. So as a parent, I have to be there. My apologies. I'll only leave the Portfolio Committee around 10:30. And thanks for agreeing. Chair, we are going to take the Portfolio Committee through the second 10-year review program that the NPC has gone through, which really talks to the events from 2012 to 2022, with particular references and emphasis on 2018 to 2022. And all of us are aware that this report was released by the NPC this October. Now, if you look at the objective of the National Development Plan as a blueprint of government to bring in transformation and redress certain challenges canvassed across different spectra of society, including civil society, various interest groups, stakeholders, business, private sector, and all other related institutions. The NPC then embarked on the review to look at how far have we gone and how far have we fared, what might have been the challenges that related to some of these things not being achieved. Over and above the unprecedented issues that confronted not only South Africa, but the world over, whether you talk the economic crisis that befell all of us, though South Africa was not in a worse situation, as all of us would remember, the COVID-19 pandemic, particular issues that confronted us as a country, especially the disasters in KZN and other provinces, and other disasters that happened, including the July protests that also confronted us in the previous years. So those are some of the things that also brought unintended consequences to us as government and the private sector not being able to reach out that. And the Commission will go at length on some of these things. Chair, in one particular engagement, especially with the Appropriation Committee, what became very, very concerning to the Appropriation Committee was that we are appropriating over R1 trillion to government across the three spheres of government and our entities, but the issues of poverty, unemployment, and inequality are not being addressed deliberately. And I think that has been one of the things that the Appropriation Committee was confronting us from NME perspective. Something that we also, as we dealt with the issues of the APPs, especially when we approve APPs, take them to cabinet so that they can come to parliament. Part of it is to say, is the APP talking to anything around unemployment, anything around, especially youth unemployment, anything around poverty, and everything around addressing the issues of equality? And this is what prompted us as DPME to say, in as much as we are holding the stick to portfolio to departments to say, there are certain things, it can't be business as usual. There are certain things that the objectives of the NDP wants to achieve, and we have to do them through the MTSF and through the APPs annually. And we are not getting traction towards that. And that's what prompted us to then bring in the National Development Planning and Coordination Bill, Framework Bill that is coming, so that we can at least have teeth and so that we can at least have capacity to say to Treasury, if departments don't comply on 1, 2, 3, Treasury has the responsibility to withhold some of the money to go into programs that do not speak to some of those things. But over and above that, what the President pronounced in 2019 on district development model is gradually helping us to see the three spheres of government as well as the is gradually coming into play to look at how comprehensively can we deal with some of these things to respond to the objectives of the NDP. So, of course, this is the first generation of the DDM. It had its own teething challenges. SOEs were playing a bit far, but now everybody's coming to the party. So we think that, and one of the things that we're also picking up is that if we have SOEs, especially DFIs, development finance institutions, wanting to behave like ordinary banks in terms of interest and other things, it will be a developmental approach. So those are some of the things that we're looking at, so that even when we looking at the 7 years that is remaining for the implementation of the National Development Plan, the current third generation of the NPC members will then help us to, in the 7 years, build back better and improve on some of these things. Chair, let me allow the commissioners to lead in this regard, if you give me that permission. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy
Stano.
Minister. Thank you, Deputy Minister. Yes, I think thank you for those remarks. Commissioners can then come in. You have between 30 to 45 minutes to make the presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, colleagues. As a commission, we'd like to take this time to appreciate the colleagues from the Portfolio Committee of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation for inviting us to share some of the insights and the findings of the 10-year review of the National Development Plan. So taking this opportunity to appreciate the Minister's remarks, Deputy Minister Pinky Kenkana, who has just introduced the member of the commission. I'm not alone, Chair. I'm with my colleagues in the commission who are the chair of the various work streams, such as social, economy, as well as governance. So without wasting any further time, Chair, I'll go.
Thank you. It would not harm, because we're meeting them for the first time. As you introduce them, we can just see them. I'm on load shedding today. I'm not able to see, so that members know who these chairs of the streams, as you have just shown yourself, so that we know them.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. So the first person I would like to introduce is the chair of the governance work stream by the name of Dr. Pulani Molokwane. Doc, can you introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Pulani Molokwane. I'm one of the commissioners in the National Planning Commission, chairing the governance work stream. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Molokwane. So, Chair, the next person I'd like to introduce is the chair.
Chair, am I the only one who don't see that?
Yes, you are the only one. There's a problem with your gadget, I'm sure. We see both the commissioners that have spoken now. I don't know whether it was quick, but we saw their faces. They just fixed something there. It might be taking longer to show you. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Chair. So the next person I'd like to introduce is the chair of the Economy Work Stream, so who is Commissioner Ravi Naidu. Commissioner Ravi.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Ravi Naidu, as mentioned, and I chair the economy work stream of the NPC. So I've been a commissioner on the NPC since the end of 2021, the beginning of 2022. So very good to be here.
Thank you. Did you see Honorable Piri?
No, I don't see them. Something is wrong. Maybe the kids will help me.
They're
Okay.
not here, so I can't see
Yeah.
them.
No, and you must just fix something there. Thank you. Next, Commissioner.
It's called BCC, one before computer.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. So the next person, we are also together with the members of the Secretariat. Especially we have our acting Deputy Secretariat member, who is Ashraf Karim. Ashraf, can you also introduce yourself, please?
Hello, Ashraf Karim with the National Planning Commission. I'm the acting deputy secretary.
Now I see them.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just introducing myself. It's Ashraf Karim. I'm the acting deputy secretary for the National Planning Commission Secretariat. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much, Ashraf. So the next person I'd like to introduce, Chair, is the chair of the social work stream within the NPC by the name of Professor Phakama Njongwana.
Good morning, I'm Phakama Njongwana and I chair the Enhancing Quality of Life work stream within the NPC. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The person I want to introduce next is also another member of Secretariat who is supporting the Commission by the name of Zarina Rama.
Good morning, everybody. I'm a member of the Secretariat, as pointed out, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Through you, Chair. Through you, Chair.
Honorable Mani.
Yeah, no, yes, the two commissioners that were.
Okay, let me come in. The last two commissioners are in the dark.
Just introduce them. Honorable Tobias is the problem. Yeah,
the last two were in the dark. We did not
Yes.
see them. We don't want to be speaking to ghosts.
Thanks, Honorable Manu, for helping me. I was just quiet because I was told I was born before computer, so I thought it's me again.
No, you were told by him in any case. it is his sin. The last two commissioners, Commissioner, as you introduce them again.
The last two commissioners that were introduced is Professor Phakama Njongwana, as well as I've also introduced Zarina from the Secretariat.
Yeah, we did not see them.
My apologies, Your Honor. I had an ankle operation and I'm on a sick bed. My apologies.
Okay, would have understood if that was just explained. No problem. The next commissioner.
Chair, I pretty much have covered everyone from the NPC side, but if you are aware, we are also...
Zarin, is it Zarin? The last one, who was
yes,
not shown.
Zarina. Okay.
Let's just do it quickly. It's not complicated.
Good morning, members. I'm Zarina, and as I said, I am honored to be part of this meeting.
You see, it can be done easily. Thank you. Over to you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to share my slide now. Please confirm if you can see the slide, Chair.
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you very much. So, colleagues, thank you very much again for allowing us to share this presentation. So this presentation is about a 10-year review of the National Development Plan, focusing specifically from the period 2012 to 2022, as well as together with the review, we have published also a call to action. So as we are all aware that it's been 10 years since the country has adopted the National Development Plan in 2012. So we have particularly last year, celebrated this event. We have chosen Eastern Cape, particularly Fort Hare, as a venue of interest to us due to its historical significance. I think you're all aware, Chair, that the likes of our former President Nelson Mandela was part of the alumni from that institution, Julius Nyerere, as well as the late Robert Mugabe was amongst others. So the NPC conducted the review in order to provide an update on the number of performance indicators as indicated in the National Development Plan. So also with this review, the aim was to also identify course correction measures, especially for the remaining 7 to 8 years, to say what can be done to ensure that we course correct so that we come back on track in terms of some of the targets that we have set for ourselves. So like I said, together with the review, we have published the call to action, which highlight a number of ongoing key initiatives that government has embarked on. For instance, some of the initiatives that have been spoken about even in the previous SONAs, such as the National Infrastructure Implementation Program, such as the Just Energy Transition Implementation Program, such as the National State Capacity Building Programs. So my presentation outline is as follows, Chair. I'll first start with the NPC background, just to give a sense of what NPC is all about, some of the work that we're involved in. Also focus on the mandate of the third National Planning Commission. Also to provide some of the NDP targets as shown in the National Development Plan. And also just to give a sense of the 2020 NDP review, which was done prior to this actual review that we are presenting today. And just to also provide the rationale behind this review, what was the reason for us to conduct this review, what is its significance, and so on. Just to also focus specifically on these findings, I'm going to explain them in this category, Chair, focusing on the economy, social governance, and I'm also going to highlight a number of contributing factors that have resulted in some of these findings. I'm also going to touch base on some of the cross-cutting issues, Chair, such as the issues of gender, youth, as well as persons with disabilities. I'm also going to touch base on some of the key proposals that NPC has put forward in the efforts to course correct. So, Chair, if you're aware that the first NPC was established in 2010 with the mandate to develop the National Development Plan. And I think if you remember very well, at that time, the chair was Trevor Manuel, which was the minister in the presidency at that time. And the deputy chairperson, it's our current president, President Cyril Ramaphosa. So in 2015, the second NPC was formed with the mandate to provide guidance and the support for the measurement as well as the implementation of the National Development Plan. If you remember, Chair, at that time, the chair was the late Jackson Mthembu, supported by Professor Makgoba. In 2021, the third NPC was appointed chair. When it was appointed, we were led by the Minister Mondli Ngugubele, who was the minister in the presidency then. So we are currently led by Minister Marupeni Ramakgopa, who's currently the minister in the presidency, also focusing on Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. She is supported by the deputy chair, who is Professor Tenyeko Maluleke, who is unfortunately cannot be part of this session today. So we are an independent advisory body, Chair, a think tank that is mandated to a long-term cross-cutting research and independent approach to country's developmental agenda. So in 2010, Chair, the first commission was appointed by then our former president, Jacob Zuma. So in 2011, in our timeline, there was a diagnostic report which formed basis for the National Development Plan. In that diagnostic report, there were a number of issues that were highlighted, which led to the development of the National Development Plan. In 2012, the NDP was handed over and it was adopted by Cabinet. It was also adopted by also a number of political parties in the country. So in 2014, there was a launch of the midterm strategic framework, 2014 to 29. The idea of the midterm strategic framework, Chair, it's a 5-year implementation framework. Some people also call it the integrated monitoring framework. What it does, it promotes the alignment and the coordination and the integration of all developmental planning instruments in the country. So that's the essence of launching that. Assisted a lot in ensuring that we focus on 5-year implementation plan of the National Development Plan. So in 2015, the second commission was appointed. And when the second commission was appointed, it has embarked on a number of research activities, Chair. So amongst the research activities, they have produced what we call a National Water Security Framework for South Africa, which was led by the Commissioner Molokwani, who's with us today, the chair of the governance workstream. So in that work, Chair, Rainwater was a key stakeholder in ensuring that that research is successful. So in addition to that, there was a number of position papers that were drafted, a number of them focusing on energy, Chair, and some focusing on township and rural economy. Also, there are other papers of interest. They are focusing on the contribution of state-owned enterprises to Vision 2030. So also in 2020, there was a review which was conducted, which this review builds on. So the main emphasis of this review is to build on that review, especially with the period 2018 to 2022. So in addition to that, the third commission, when it was appointed, one of the key focus area was to ensure that we have an implementation tracker tool. So we are currently working in collaboration with DPME, CSIR, and a number of stakeholders to ensure that we come up with a dashboard, Chair, that can able to track some of these various indicators in the National Development Plan. So one of our mandates, Chair, is to lead the development and the periodic review of the long-term National Strategic Plan. And we're supposed to ensure that on a continuous basis, we engage Cabinet on the outcomes of those. The second mandate, to support strong leadership that will be required to mobilize society to promote the acceleration in the implementation of the National Development Plan. So in that, our communication task team has already embarked on a number of initiatives, Chair, to mobilize society around the National Development Plan. I think as you have seen in the number of ads that you have seen in your televisions, a number of ads that you have seen in the airports, that's our efforts, Chair, as the Third National Planning Commission to mobilize society behind the National Development Plan, as we see it as relevant as ever. Our third mandate, Chair, is to assist in forging conversations among key stakeholders, leading to effective and impactful social compacts on a number of key issues facing the country. So on that, Chair, I explained how we are grouped in terms of economy, social, and governance, working groups. In those working groups, we have engaged a number of key stakeholders. So for instance, the economy has engaged IDC, World Bank, liquor boards, Development Bank of South Africa, as well as the Presidential Climate Commission on a number of issues that we are currently working on. Including our social work stream, Chair, has also embarked on a number of key stakeholder engagements, including Department of Basic Education, Department of Higher Education and Training, SASA, DSD, Department of Home Affairs, and so on. In addition, our governance workstream has also engaged a number of key stakeholders, including local government. We have engaged the Waterberg municipality as well as the eThekwini municipality. We're also working closely with DPME on the planning bill, as well as we have engaged South African Human Rights Commissions, as well as the IEC. So our fourth mandate, Chair, is to advise on key issues facing the country. I've explained that we are advising on key issues such as water security, energy choices, and so on. So we have produced a number of advisories, Chair, some of which in our website, and some of which have been already discussed with relevant stakeholders and departments. We have also, in addition, produced a number of op-eds which were published, and a number of memorandum of agreement have been reached with various local and international partners. We have also provided inputs into various bills that have served in our national structures. Our fifth mandate, Chair, is to undertake research and build a body of evidence on critical matters for long-term planning and development in the country, and to strengthen the use of evidence, Chair, and the quality of empirical data generated for impact assessment for the national planning. So in that, Chair, like I said, we have produced a number of position papers. In addition to that, we've also undertaken a number of research and produced a number of reports to address this. Our sixth mandate, Chair, is to monitor, review, and assess the progress in achieving the NDP. I have mentioned that we have conducted this review with the purpose of this mandate specifically. And also I've explained earlier that we are currently developing a dashboard tool to track some of the various indicators of the National Development Plan. So to ensure that we do continuous monitoring, Chair, of where we are and what are some of the gaps, and ensuring that we fill those gaps going forward. In addition, Chair, one of our mandates is to provide evidence-based advice on futuristic national planning and foresight scenario planning to implement their plan towards 2030 better. So on that, Chair, we have engaged in the number of workshops. For instance, we are having another scenario planning and future thinking workshop on the 5th of December this year. We are developing fully fledged scenario that will assist us, especially in ensuring that we have strategic roadmaps, in ensuring that we address the issue of unemployment. Our last mandate, Chair, is to contribute to the development of international partnerships and networks on national planning. On that, Chair, we are working with a number of key stakeholders internationally. We are working with the United Nations, especially on the food and agricultural programs, as well as we are working with the World Health Organization, especially with the NHI that is unfolding. So the NDP, Chair, has a number of key targets, Chair, and ultimately the NDP wants to ensure that there is a quality healthcare for all. It was ensure that we improve the quality of education and training, we reverse the spatial effects of apartheid, we reform the public sector, we ensure that we build safer communities, we ensure that we ensure an inclusive, integrated rural economy, as well as we transition to a low carbon economy. So to ensure that we achieve a quality healthcare for all, there's a number of things that the NDP has put forward as proposals. For instance, the key one that can remember directly is to reduce the prevalence of non-communicable diseases, as well as to increase the life expectancy to 70 years, and to ensure that there's an equal standard healthcare for all, Chair. In terms of improving the quality of education and training and innovation, Chair, the NDP emphasized on making or prioritizing early childhood development, ensuring that we emphasize on literacy, as well as issues of maths and science, to also address some of the infrastructural breadlocks, especially in education, as well as we work on our enrollments and throughput rates in institutions of higher learning. In terms of reversing the spatial effects of apartheid, the NDP has also highlighted a number of proposals going forward to ensure that we integrate our transport systems, as well as ensure proper land use, and ensure that we support participation of those, especially from disadvantaged communities. In terms of reforming the public sector, also the NDP has also highlighted a number of initiatives. I have mentioned the the bill that has been approved, which is also a good progress towards achieving this, to ensure that we build a capable, developmental, and ethical professional state. In terms of social protection, also the NDP emphasize on ensuring that we address issues of hunger, malnutrition, and we provide support share to the unemployed, as well as we build an effective social welfare system. In terms of transition to a low carbon economy share, the NDP envisaged that we decline the trajectory from the greenhouse gas emissions. We ensure that we also increase our capacity in terms of the renewable sources. The NDP, in terms of integrated, inclusive rural economy, envisage that we create jobs, especially in the agricultural, agro-processing sectors. Also, in terms of building safer communities, the NDP also envisage that we should ensure that we build safer spaces where people in the country can feel safe with no fear of crime, to ensure that we have spaces where women and children can walk freely, as well as we capacitate our law enforcement agencies to ensure that they are well capacitated to address issues of crime. So I have mentioned, Chair, that this review is a build up from the previous review, which was launched in 2018. So that review highlighted a number of issues, that unemployment was on a rise then, spatial inequality challenges were persistent, the economic growth has been stagnant, and this was due to the recession that was happening at that time. And at that time, service delivery had worsened, which is also coupled with economy, labor market difficulties, which negatively households in the country. So the essence of this review, as I've explained earlier, the review interrogates the factors that affect the implementation of the National Development Plan since it was adopted, including consideration of domestic and international crises, as Deputy Minister Kekana has explained. The review assesses the progress made with key NDP targets of eliminating poverty, reducing inequality and unemployment. It evaluates the extent to which planning has been institutionalized and the reforms of the country planning systems across all the spheres. The review also focuses on the period, Chair, 2018 to 2022, which was the emphasis as a build-up to the previous review, which was launched and published. So the review was necessary, Chair, to determine the progress that we have made so far, and to also course correct in terms of ensuring that we address some of the gaps that are there, so that we meet up with some of the targets that we have set for ourselves. Chair, all I can say, it's all about making the puzzle fit, Chair. It's ensuring that we align the vision of the country and also our plans, so that there is better coordination across all levels of government. So it's about achieving all these aims and goals towards 2030, Chair. So as NPC, we believe that if we are to ensure that we build a prosperous as well as a sustainable future for the next generation, we need to ensure that we grow an inclusive economy, Chair. We build those human capabilities that we are always talking about. We enhance the capability of the state from all levels. We promote the leadership and the partnerships that will assist us in mobilizing the society behind these plans. So we have engaged on a number of events, Chair, throughout last year. So we have engaged on a number of events. One of those events I've explained earlier, that we have celebrated the 10-year anniversary of the National Development Plan. So the pictures that you see on your slide, it's amongst those that were taken at Fort Hare, Chair. There was also a number of events, such as the State Capacity Conference, which happened in Durban, also together with Department of Public Service and Administration. There were also a number of youth engagements that we have been engaging on, led by Commissioner Pillay. And we are making progress in terms of ensuring that we engage community around all this work that NPC is doing. So in terms of the targets of the National Development Plan, there were targets that were set. For instance, in 2030, it was envisaged that the GDP growth will reach 5.4%. So at that time, we were looking at the baseline of 3.3%. It was 2011. But however, we have not seen good results in terms of that. We are currently sitting at 1.1%. So there were also a number of targets, such as unemployment share, which the NDP envisaged that we reach 6%. So we are currently going in a different direction. We are currently sitting at 32.9% in 2022. So in terms of employment as well, the NDP envisaged that by 2030, we'll have created 24 million jobs. We are currently sitting at a target of 16.1 million, which are some of the things that needs to be ensure that we prioritize and ensure that we put emphasis where there are gaps to ensure that we still catch up with some of these targets that have been set. So I won't talk to all the targets. Some of these you are aware of. Hopefully in the discussions, we can touch base on some of them. But just to go straight into the findings, the first findings I want to report on is the economy findings. So one of the findings is that the economy remains in a low growth trap. The growth has been averaged at 1.1% for the period, with the per capita GDP growth negative. High levels of concentration and barriers to entry of new firms and SMMEs. There is spatial inequality challenges that continue to persist. Income poverty has been rising since 2015. Private sector investment has declined. South Africa remains the most unequal country in the world, with incomes that are highly polarized. Wealth inequality is much larger than consumption expenditure inequality. Unemployment has increased to 32.9%, meaning that 8 million unemployed, as well as there are about 3.6 million that are also discouraged from looking for jobs. Lack of energy security, as well as in particular reliance on electricity supply, which is widely recognized as the major obstacle towards growth, has become an increasingly concern. So there are a number of contributing factors which has led to some of the findings which I've just repeated on. One of the factors includes the global response to contain the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, the energy crisis, as I've explained, the rise of criminal syndicates share, particularly in the mining construction sector, as we have seen in a number of reportings in media. Also, our measures to address climate change also that have also hindered that, a lack of employment creation, transformation, innovation, and competitiveness, amongst other contributing factors that have led to this. In terms of SMME, there were also challenges of lack of finances, lack of markets, provision of basic infrastructure such as water, sanitation, and electricity, as well as regulatory and administrative inefficiency. So we are working as the third National Planning Commission, particularly on this, to address some of the red tapes that exist so that we can ensure that our SMME, they thrive. In terms of the social findings share, there were also a number of findings that were noted. For instance, the dual health system is characterized by inequality in quality, efficiency, as well as ineffectiveness. Progress on life expectancy and infant mortality. Further actions required to meet the NDP health-related goals. The implementation of the national health insurance may have unintended outcomes such as governance issues, status of medical aid schemes, as well as potential for corruptions. A number of grant beneficiaries has grown. Schooling has improved, especially the number of bachelor passes. They surpassed the National Development Plan targets the National Integrated Early Childhood Development adopted by government in 2015. We are also seeing positive results with that. Also, stunting prevalence has remained unchanged in relation to the set targets. So while there has been a progress in several areas of the social sector, it has also been slow and with regression in some cases. So there are also a number of contributing factors to this. So one of the contributing factors is inability to prioritize, poor sequencing of programs, high unemployment rates as a result of in social grant support, supporting households, as well as contributing factors in terms of malnutrition that I've touched base on. Child support grants as well as the national nutrition programs also contributed to the decline in hunger rates, as well as high levels of poverty and the effect of COVID-19 pandemic. In terms of the governance findings, Chair, there were also a number of issues that were noted. The special policy reforms were inadequate, majority located far from the unemployment opportunities, as well as inadequate approach to human settlements. National framework towards professionalization of the public sector was approved by cabinet, so which is a good sign that we are making progress in that direction. Progress on key pieces of public service legislation to strengthen the state capacity. Designation of Director Generals in the Presidency as the head of the public administration, as well as DG in the Premier's office, and the extension of the tenure are additional positive measures, Chair. Planning framework still to be promulgated. Unevenness in the state capacity remains a challenge. NDP was based on the capable state. Despite the government measures, crime remains a problem. So there were also a number of contributing factors to this, including poor productivity, corruption, wastages, sabotage, leakage, coupled with a lack of accountability that have also undermined all the efforts to build the state capacity and service delivery. Persistent social inequalities, as well as lack of leadership affecting the social cohesion, the lack of capacity within the state to execute plans, state capture, as well as corruption, as well as international and local shocks. The lack of trust in the police and inaccessibility of police stations, as well as the persistent corruption within the police services, as well as lack of adequate alignment between planning, budgeting cycles, processes, incoherent planning, special planning systems, misalignment of planning cycles. Lack of legislation in terms of properly to institutionalize the emergence of planning systems have also contributed to some of the findings which I spoke about. So in terms of the cross-cutting findings, pandemic social impact on South Africa has been high, impacting on poverty, inequality, and unemployment. So approximately 2.2 million South Africans lost their job. COVID-19 pandemic forced government to make difficult policy choices to restore macroeconomic stability and also deal with health, socio-economic crisis to accelerate growth and make economy more inclusive. Gender crime remains an issue. Youth continue to face disadvantages in labor markets. Unemployment is higher amongst the youth. Very few state institutions have factorized youth development into their planning. Implementation of the National Development Plan requires a gender focus if social and economic objectives of reducing poverty and inequality are to be met. Also, slow implementation of programs focusing on persons with disability. We have also noted this, and we are currently having a work stream and a task team that is focusing specifically on this. So in terms of the 10-year review, Chair, the NPC proposes a number of things. The first one is to maintain the current fiscal and monetary policies until the expansion is possible. The second one is to establish strong public-private partnership in order to strengthen trust to meet public sector goals, as well as to build inclusive economy. The third one is to address the logistic issues and licensing bottlenecks to unlock mining industry potential, to address the financing challenges, land reforms, logistical constraints, irrigation rise to unlock the agriculture as the main sector potential. Taking decisive actions against economic crimes like theft, infrastructure vandalism, construction sector extortion, as well as illegal mining. We are also proposing reducing red tapes, increasing financing for small businesses. As an NPC, we also provide comprehensive ECD services, will assist in terms of ensuring that we meet up with some of the targets to ensure that appointments of public sector as well as state-owned enterprise boards are based on merits rather than political consideration, to improve state-owned enterprise reforms, especially ESCOM, Transnet, and Sanral, which are actually key in the country, Chair, more especially that they are responsible for issues of road infrastructure as well as transportation. Institutionalization of planning across all levels of governments, ensuring public participation is very key, Chair. Finalizing the integrated planning framework bill to guide the developmental planning as well as corresponding institutional structures. Implementation of the framework on professionalization of the public service. I did mention that it was approved, but to ensure that we implement it can definitely assist a long way to ensure that we address some of those issues I've highlighted in our findings. As I've explained, Chair, that together with this review, we have published a call to action. So in our call to action as NPC, we are emphasizing to say NDP remains as relevant as ever, Chair. To reach NDP goals, and economic, social, environmental fundamentals must be in place. A comprehensive, coordinated, multi-sectoral partnership to development must be adopted. An approach which is rooted in good governance, economic transformation, social cohesion, a just transition to a more sustainable development pathways, as well as an approach that is in favor of the poorest of the poor. So we call on the President, Chair, to use his high office to advocate for the return of the National Development Plan to the center of all government planning. We call on Cabinet, Chair, and all government departments to create a policy environment that prioritizes the needs of the poorest of the poorest. We call on the Parliament to refocus on the NDP when holding entities to account. We call on local governments to focus on core responsibilities of providing services. We call on business sectors to make its own contribution to the attainment of the national development goals. We therefore, Chair, lastly, call on all South Africans to play their part in the restoration of hope in a more vigorous pursuit of the goals of the National Development Plan over the second decade of the National Development Plan up to 2030. With this, Chair, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for listening. So my message today is, this is our future, Chair. Let us make it work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Commissioner. You have stayed within your time and saved even a few minutes. At the same time, you were able to go through everything comprehensively. Thank you for that. I want to invite members, unless there's any addition from your team, though I know that they will be fielding questions with yourselves. But honorable members, may I invite you for your interaction with the presentation, knowing that it has been sent to us well ahead of time. You would have gone through it. So today was us listening to that written presentation. Any takers? Honorable Mani, you'll kick off. Honorable McGlue. Honorable Tobias. Honorable Yabo. In that order, I'm going to start with Honorable Mani. Over to you, Honorable Mani.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. Yeah, firstly, I just want to firstly, I must apologize for joining the meeting a bit late. But Chairperson, I also really want to appreciate the comprehensive presentation in the first instance. And I think it was also a very honest presentation. The Commissioner did not skimp. He did not say what we wanted to hear. He said everything that which we wanted to hear and that which we did not want to hear. So I really want to appreciate that level of honesty and also just evidence-driven presentation and all of that. So yeah, that level I really want to take my hat off. Then we get to the meat of things, Chairperson. You know, President Mbeki has actually described the NDP as some kind of a vision and not a plan. And he was saying this is incorrect to call it a plan. And I interrogated what he meant by this, Chairperson, and I went to the actual document again. I had read it in 2012. I was still in government when this was starting. And I actually think President Mbeki is correct. To refer to this thing as a plan is actually incorrect, because this thing has got no, there are no milestones and action plans for somebody to, we hope for the best, basically. So hoping for the best plan. You know, if you have the commissioner here saying government must do this, but there is no day-to-day instruction from NDP, anything to anyone. You do what you do, and somehow you get a lucky strike. You can see this lucky strike, Chairperson, with the what is called an achievement of the NDP. Let's look at the bachelor's passes as an example. If this was a well-coordinated machinery, you wouldn't have a situation where you have improved bachelors coming from schools, bachelor passes coming from school. But you have a serious problem with the absorption at higher institutions. So what exactly were you doing? You know, you have an improved lifespan situation, but basically you are making people live longer to experience poverty. So why do you want people to live longer to experience poverty? I mean, you're sitting here with inequality that is worse than it was in apartheid days, you know. So yeah, I think those are just lucky strikes. It was not planned and coordinated. It's really just lucky strikes, and I think it would not be honest to attribute that to NDP. Anything, this thing was just happening. It's just by luck that. We've hit it. And the reason you'd say this is because in the things that are really in the hands of the state, like growing the GDP of the country, I mean, to have expected 5.4 and we are languishing at 1.1, you know, to have expected unemployment to be around 6%, to be sitting at 32.9%. It's a disaster, this Chairperson. And so I've got a few questions. One is, having mentioned the things, for instance, this is its honesty that I really appreciate. That firstly, from a growth rate, we've got a disaster. From poverty, we've got a disaster. From investments, we've got a disaster. From inequality, we've got a disaster. The disaster list is not comprehensive. It could have included grey listing. It could have included debt to GDP. It could have included the repayment of debt, which has become the highest single line item on our income statement as a country. Could have included crime, corruption, the whole lot. So with all that, the question is, what exactly is required for a state to be called a failed state? Why don't we have a failed state? So in other words, if I am saying we have a failed state as we speak, what is the argument against that? So that is the first question. The second question, Chairperson, related to this, which I know that the presentation could not cover everything. But we have the July unrests that have also set the country back, where about 300 people died, where we had lots of revenue to the billions, where property was damaged and all that. So that thing will have an effect. Maybe we are still suffering from it now. And the reason that the independent panel stated, one of the reasons, amongst many things, one of the reasons that we had that problem, which could have been avoided, is that the independent panel, not me saying this, independent panel chaired by the eminent advocate Mujangu, they said that the National Security Council, which was meant to have set, this is a council that analyzes, synthesizes all the information that comes from the various security agents, police, everyone, SSA and all of that, everybody, they deposit information there, and then some proactive measures are done to preempt or combat whatever is coming. Now, in the report, it is stated that these unrests were known before they happened. They were in WhatsApp groups. They were everywhere. This is in the report, and had an opportunity been given to the operational people to present to this National Security Council. Maybe a decision would have been taken to preempt this, because people would have driven from townships. Maybe there would have been roadblocks and all of that to make sure that this doesn't happen. And the kingpin here in all of this is none other than number one of the country, President Ramaphosa, who is the convener of this committee. And it didn't convene this. So I sit here, Chair, I put the blame of July 21 squarely on the shoulders of the head of state. And I'd like to know the NPC, how did they interrogate that report of the independent panel? Did they deal with it? Do they understand what I'm saying in terms of the perspective I'm sharing, that the centrality of this mess of July 2021 was actually sponsored by the fact that that meeting did not sit, Chairperson. So I think we have that problem, Chairperson. Then lastly, Chairperson, is that I'm struggling to also understand the if we didn't have NPC in the country, what exactly would we lose? This information that was shared here today is not like NPC is the only place that has this information. I've had this information even before this presentation. So if we didn't have NPC, what exactly? What would we miss, Chairperson? Is this not just another structured duplication of roles and everything? As I say, quite honestly, I can tell you exactly all the source documents for all of these things that have been said here. Maybe that the NPC has put them together, but they are not uniquely positioned to have done this. So why do we need them, Chairperson? Those are my questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mani, for your contributions. Honorable McGlew.
Chair, thank you so much. I want to start to say that I'm actually not in a good space.
Chair, is it me losing him or is it all of us?
Let's just wait and hear. Honorable McGlew. Honorable McGlew.
He's probably in Cape Town, Chair. Nothing works in Cape Town.
He did indicate he's not in a good space. Maybe I will allow him to come back. Let me note Honorable Thandi Tobias.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, first let me welcome the presentation. And let me say also that there are points of convergence between me and Honorable Mai. You see, when he says things are not working in Cape Town, I happen to be in my Cape Town property in Wynberg. That's the worst position ever to be. And it's close to military too, and it's also close to the military. So it's sometimes when people clap for the Western Cape government, they're not honest about what we can have here. But I'm not going to be tempted to discuss politics today, because if I was going to go that route, what Honorable Manye has presented was going to have us to have a discussion the whole day. But let me start here. You see, the Planning Commission was established to advise Cabinet as an advisory committee, and we should not miss that point. The Planning Commission was never established to draft a strategic plan for government and to bring new ideas, but to advise on key strategic areas. And I know that Honorable Manye knows that, because he has been part of a cohort of DGs that also set and planned together with the Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission comprises of experts, really. This is not average individuals whom have not yet considered their opinions. It's not just your natural intellectual capability, it is being enhanced with academic qualifications. Now, I'll be dishonest when I look at their operations in isolation of the geopolitics that has affected the work of this commission and any other commission the world over. And I'm raising this argument, Chair, because you see the projections they had, 5.1, very ambitious, of course, for the GDP growth, which is something that one day we should really, if China can have 7, and I don't know, I want to compare ourselves with China, with got more than 1.3 billion, the population size compared to South Africa in terms of its own economy and the market share, where we lose it even to some of our friends in the world. But to me, this becomes the most important issue that we must make a reflection on, because for any program, plan to be implemented, you need to have resources. Therefore, you look at the size of your economy, its performance, and how you can activate it for growth. Now, what I want to ask is, has the Planning Commission paid attention on how to change the status quo of a downward growth in terms of the South African economy? A lot of factors has been put on the table. The geopolitics, the war between Ukraine and the Ruskies, the issue of the current challenges between Palestine and Israel. But above all, any economy should be able to cushion itself even against disasters, be it COVID or otherwise. We should find ways as the Commission to be able to look at how, beyond those other international factors, we can cushion the South African economy. And that's where I'm challenging my colleague, my counterpart, because I know he can stretch his mind, Honorable Mai. You see, the IMF and the World Bank has characterized South Africa as the highest unequal society in the world. And there's a reason why they said that. And those are the factors that we're not dealing with. It's got totally nothing to do with the performance of the South African government. And it has got everything to do with the South African economy in terms of who are the owners of the economic commanding heights. And I expect him, given his left stance as the economic freedom fighters, to be able to articulate that part, to say, in a country where, and I like the fact that he quoted former President Mbeki. Former President Mbeki once spoke about the first and the second economy. And he juxtapose it with the lives of South Africans right here in Cape Town. The different livelihoods you find here in Wynberg, up where I stay, Constantia in the neighborhood Rondebosch, and Khayelitsha, Honorable Chairperson, where you are familiar with because the constituency comes from. And that's not the creation of the South African government. We all know that. Ours is to change that. And the stubbornness of capitalism. The former Deputy President, Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, once set a program here to engage business, to make them understand that they've got a role to play in the South African economy. And this is not what we're talking about. We must talk about that here. And the Planning Commission must focus itself on those goals that were put in as GISA. Because up until such time, we engaged private business to come on board. We've enticed business with incentives for investment, but they've continuously not spent their money and invested it offshore and kept it in reserves and not have invested adequately in the economy. Hence, the investment conference. The investment conference was a way to try and tout business to invest in our economy. We can go to those statistics. Perhaps we should get them and debate them. I'm not even talking about foreign direct investment. I'm just talking about local investment. And up until we're not frank with each other and we debate in a political manner for any reasons, whether we're going to elections or whatsoever, we'll be dishonest about the performance of the South African economy. Now, perhaps the time has come for the Commission to move beyond just being an advisory body, but to hold certain institutions, including the private sector, to account about its own role in the South African economy. Because you will not know at what point does business expect South Africa to intervene. For instance, listening to DAMPs yesterday, they make this point continuously for the past time. All these years I've been in Parliament, they will make this point that government is not supposed to intervene. It must just make regulations. And yet government, at the same time, it's expected to provide services, to be a job creator, and to do all this. So there's hypocrisy about the position we hold and what we expect from government. When people campaign, they blame the government. But when the government intervene through BEE, through industrialization, through any other means, government is accused of getting into a space that governments should ordinarily not be involved into. So let's be honest in this debate, because I think ours is not just to judge the Commission. 10-year review, we review what we were able to do and what we should be able to do and make concrete suggestions so that come 2030, you are able to say, what is it that we have honestly achieved as South Africa as a country? Because you cannot you cannot ignore the fact that capitalism, colonization still has its own impact. And I can give a lot of anecdotes about how it is still impacting ordinary citizens and their own livelihoods. Chair, let me pause. I'll come back. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Tobias, for your contribution. I now go back to Honorable McGlue. Are you ready now? We lost you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm having terrible signal problems. Am I audible now?
You are audible.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Like I said, I'm actually emotional and not in a good space after listening to the presentation. And just as any other member of this portfolio committee, I will be dealing with anecdotal evidence that is in front of us. And I don't want to politicize this, but I want to tell you a small story. 2010, at the time, I think you were the Minister of Human Settlements at the time in the Western Cape. I sat opposite the former minister in the presidency, Trevor Manuel, who wrote me a letter that we can do whatever we want to. We will never have a committee of this nature. It's many years and many moons ago. And today we are fortunate to hear the voices of the Honorable Pillais of this world, Honorable Manias and others in a committee where we at least can hold the presidency accountable. But here is my point I would like to make. And maybe first, Chair, on a procedural point, the findings and the reports presented to us affect government. And I am not aware as to whether Cabinet has expressed a view on the findings of this report. And this report is now in front of us. The fact to me is that we are left with seven years. And to listen to a report that is still proposing, that still call upon government, that's still asking, local governments to do 1, 2, 3. I think it is years too late to do that. On various debates in Parliament, we are confronted with corruption. And one of it is that I have said it over and over, we have lost billions in only the COVID-19 area. We have lost billions. If you look at the Zondo report, this is what we are dealing here. We are not politicizing anything here. Now the question is, and this is a direct finger pointed to government, can we trust government? Because after so many years, there is still an increase on this and a lack of energy, economy. We still have challenges with policies, if you look at this report, that we need to take to Parliament to deal with a number of issues and even, for example, the spatial inequalities that we are facing, including poverty. Now, the Commission at its own admission and has also reported, and I would really like them to respond to this, that they said that by 2030, they will not be able to achieve most of its targets. So what are those targets? And we hear their cry in terms of COVID, the floods, and the war, and all of that. But at the end of the day, we as a community, we would like to have answers. Has there been some engagement? Private businesses are being blamed that they are working against government. Has there been engagement with private partnerships to collaborate? Because this report speaks to a collaboration with the whole of society. If we look at the SOEs, Chairperson, there is no turnaround. If we look at what is happening at development when it comes to service delivery and infrastructure, nothing is happening. Our investment, our efforts in attracting investment and also growing a structural reform has failed. And all of these negatives, listen, it's like a funeral speech that I have listened to. Now let me just raise one finding that is presented to the president, who only take note of it and yet also have to come back. One of the main findings made was the economy was not failing to grow at the rate required for the objectives of the NDP to materialize. So we need some answers. It is not a political party, it's not governance saying this. This is the Planning Commission saying that the economy was not only failing to grow at the rate required for the objectives for the NDP to materialize, also the economy was not structured. It said by itself, it is not structured to serve the interests of South Africa. Now, whose fault is that? That is not any political fault that there's something wrong with the structure. It's government, so that can result in for us to eliminate poverty, to eliminate the inequality that we currently have, because it remains extremely high year after the other. If you listen to the report pertaining to the creation of job and all of these. So we need, and we do have a right. We do have a right to ask these questions. And we are talking to government. We are not talking to ANC or DA MPs here. We are talking to government. And we are also sitting with an entity here with a commission that can only make recommendations et al. On the other hand, I also want to stress that we appreciate at the time when this thing starts. I saw the bond of this during the time of Trevor Manuel. And we take cognizance of the fact that some of these commissions are actually voluntary. They are they part-time. I want to know also through you, Chair, whether there are still 24 of these volunteers. Has some of them resigned? Is all of them still with us? That is the question that the answer that I would like to have on my question, and also on the findings and reports that is now presented to us. It is a report that affects government. Again, it affects government. They must express a view first before it could or should have reached us. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Maglu. Honorable Yabo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I would like to appreciate the presentation that we received. Let me also greet honorable members on the platform. Let me greet the department, the NPC commissioners who are here. Let me greet the Deputy Minister and appreciate her political overview. I want to open my remarks and questions by saying and concurring with Honorable Tobias that we have the highest Gini coefficient in the world, which is the largest gap between the rich and the poor. And it's getting worse. And I want to also say that the reason that you will have a Gini coefficient that rises to its limits is because systems are generally what runs life. And this is why during the liberation period, the argument of the African National Congress was that we are fighting against the system and not against the race of people. And if the tables were turned and the system was ran by people who are like yourself and myself, Chair, the injustice would not have been perceived any less. And it would not have been given room to breathe any less than the previous system was given room to breathe. And so the debate is around a system and not the elements, necessarily individual elements of the system, but the system as it presents itself and the outcomes of the system. And so the outcomes of the system has been poverty, inequality, and unemployment. We must agree that we are dealing with this, with the problem of an outcome of a system, which in its design carries within it the seed that gives fruit, unemployment, poverty, inequality. And that's where we must begin. And therefore, the work of the NPC, for me as an advisory committee, is that it must begin to look into the system. Because no system dies overnight, Chair, because you have changed this or that policy, and you have started the process of reversing and amending certain laws. Over its period, colonialism, and what we refer to as a colonialism of a special type, has had over 300 years, 3 centuries, to develop itself, to find itself at a place where it reached a point of saturation. And it collapsed in and of itself. And so even with the pressure applied by the international community through sanctions and all of that, the system had reached a sell-by date in the way it was structured. But the inherent characteristics of the system remains. And this is why the stubborn elements of that system are still pervasive. Even today, they remain perennial. And the Gini coefficient is one measure to show us that which we fought against, the definite outcomes and the fruit of that system remains here with us. And if it remains with us, why is it still here? Why is the democratic order struggling to reverse the tide of the outcomes of that system? And the answer is that systems, by their very nature, are subjected to boom-bust cycles. Boom-bust cycles. They will have a point of reaching the zenith or the apex, and they will reach a point of saturation, and they will crash in and of themselves if certain parameters are exceeded. And this is what you will find in what the army uses when they go to war, especially in water areas. They put sacks of sand that will act as a barrier against water flooding into areas. It's because when sand reaches a certain point of saturation with water quantity, it acts as a barrier to further water passing through. It no longer acts as just a filter because it has reached the point of saturation. A system needs to be analyzed for what it is. And that question that I would want to ask the NPC is, in them conducting their work, would they have done a system analysis, a proper critical analysis of the system, economic system in South Africa, the governance system? And I'm not just talking the legal framework, the policy framework. I'm talking going deep inside the system with a view of changing it. Systems by their very nature, if you want different outcomes, you must change the system. If you want certain outcomes to change the system. Because what we are looking at with the capital economy system is that you have a reinforcing feedback loop, one, in the system itself, plus a balancing loop, which assists to make the system reach equilibrium as and when it reaches points of saturation. A critical example, the property bubble that burst a couple of decades ago, and that started in America, what was called the subprime crisis. Systems will have that. So the NPC, in it conducting its work, they need to furnish us with the framework they would have used to analyze the systems that produce unemployment, inequality, and poverty in our country. Because that will only assist us to know whether the plan that is to be put in place will work with the current embedded system that needs to be eradicated if we are to succeed. I want to also ask the following question: that has the NPC performed a comparative analysis on the following, Chair? The amount of time from a period of the liberation struggle to a democratic dispensation to a thriving economy, the amount of time that the state will take to move from a liberation struggle to achieving a democratic order or dispensation to achieving a thriving economy. And what would be the contributing factors to that amount of time? And I'm saying average, comparatively, with a peer-to-peer review, what is the amount of time? Would we then say 29 years is sufficient if we are to use a comparative analysis? Would the NPC have done that work? To say pound for pound, orange for orange, apple for apple, how are we faring on the timeline? As this government, is 29 years sufficient to be a measure of whether we are moving or we are stagnant? And comparatively, how have those who have achieved liberation from a colonial system fared compared to us? We have Ghana, who achieved their liberation in 1950. How are they faring compared to South Africa? We have other nations outside of Africa who are in the Southeast Asia, and the different periods of achievement. And I'm saying comparatively, has the NPC done that work? And also, I want to know that has the NPC looked at the structure of our state, our economic structure, our policy framework in conducting its work? And we have also seen that within what they would have presented, that the gross capital formation as a percentage of the GDP has declined to 14.1% relative to the baseline of 19.3% in 2010. A curious development, Chair, is that just this week, an article came out that capital flight has increased by leaps and bounds in recent times, with those who are regarded to be in the millionaire classification leaving the country. And we are also on the reverse receiving others who are leaving their countries. But comparatively, the number of those who are leaving versus those who are coming in is more. And we should look at that as one of the typical examples that the capital gross formation decline. Some of the issues that have had a contributory factor to it is this capital flight. What are the causes of this capital flight? And the reduction of this gross capital formation that has been identified by the NPC. Public sector investment as a percentage of GDP has also declined to 4.1% in 2021 relative to 6.8% in 2012. Would the NPC then argue that the austerity measures as an intervention is a measure that works in trying to stimulate the economy? Is public sector spending cuts, as public sector spending cuts contributory to growing the economy? Is it a model that works? Maybe let's interrogate that so that we are able to get some form of answer that is not anecdotal, empirical evidence. These declines in these two critical indicators, Chair, reflect the impact of fiscal consolidation in our view, and the lack of an expansionary fiscal framework. Reduced public spending resulted in the decline of the gross capital formation and the economy, we argue. And so I wanted to ask these questions, Chair, so that we are able to be given a much broader appreciation of a comparative analysis on how we are faring in abolishing the system. The fight for when we say aluta kontinua, it's not a joke. The system must be changed. The fight to change it continues. We must not lie to ourselves that unemployment, poverty, and inequality will be eradicated through some ephemeral analysis or a surface level effort that we may apply ourselves onto. Thank you very much, Chair. I would have liked to speak more, but time does not permit.
Thank you, Honorable Yabo, for your contribution. Thank you, members. That was the last hand. Maybe at this point, to invite the National Planning Commission. You would have listened to assertions by members, very strong assertions by members, in the form of statements, and the nature of those statements do challenge that you share a bit of a response to that, but also there are specific questions that have been thrown that I hope you would have taken note of. And so I'm going to ask that the commission responds, and at the end, I will allow the Deputy Minister after the commission to come in if she will still be with us. I hope commissioners have already allocated themselves responses. If not, we'll give yourself 2 minutes to just do that task, and then we proceed from that.
Chair, maybe beg your indulgence and say let me start first because I know ordinarily I have to come last, but I'm pressured for time. Is it possible?
Okay, you're still with us. If there are any things you want to pick up, please go ahead, and then thereafter we'll go to the commission.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and thanks to the inputs that members of the Portfolio Committee
Honorable Deputy Minister, are you still there? I don't see her on the platform now. Okay. Can I then do like this? We'll just take a 2 minutes break, allow the commission to divide tasks amongst themselves, and
I'm back, Chair.
Okay, Deputy Minister.
Yeah, just quickly, I'm in Cape Town, so it's glitches from time to time. No, just to say, Chair, we shouldn't really say, from what Comrade Mani has just said, a lot has been achieved by having gone through, South Africa having gone through the liberation issues, the democratic government, and now where we are. And looking at what Status A brought to the fore on where the population was when we came in and where we are today, also in terms of us rolling out infrastructure and other things. Of course, we are not going to condone underperformance and other related things. But if you look at having gone through, whether you call the global economic crisis, the COVID-19, the July unrest, and all other things, the president and cabinet came with an economic recovery plan. And having looked at the assessment that multinationals have also done to South Africa, the issues of poverty, inequality, and unemployment, what we then said was, let's come with an economic recovery plan, and all what we need to say, especially from the Planning Commission, the Monitoring and Evaluation Department, including oversight by Parliament, is to make sure that all government departments of 3 spheres of government implement what we said must be done in the ERP. That's one. But 2 is to also make the SOEs to come to the party, because we have seen that in especially the DFIs, they were not helping and making a contribution to become a development. The worst case is where you have instability in Transnet and Eskom, and that in itself also create other challenges and compound the situation. So once we have stability in Eskom, once we have stability in Transnet, some of these challenges economic challenges that confronts us, not to say they will be alleviated, but there will be better intervention and improvement going forward. But the biggest challenge which we are now seeing, and that's why we are zooming into DDM, the capacity of municipalities to deliver services. Because most investors invest in various metros and municipalities, and they would want to be assured of services and other related things. We have seen the blockages that are happening now in the Devon port and other related, and what strain does it bring to those metros? So we are saying, and the DCOG is now starting to come closer with Treasury to say, how do we up the game in municipalities and build capacity for them to be able to deliver, so that at least there's confidence, investor confidence, even at municipal level. So it's not like we are sitting and not dealing with some of these things. Of course, we have to even up the game and improve on what the president also says, the red tape and the ease of doing business in South Africa, because that in itself was also the biggest problem. So I'm saying the interventions from the economic recovery plan is one of the things. Stability in our SOEs becomes one of the things. Our DFIs must also become developmental and help. We must now start to feel the impact of Infrastructure South Africa and DBSA to help us to improve on infrastructure and leapfrog some of the challenges that we have, including improving on the equitable share that goes to municipalities and building capacity at that level, because that's where we also lose a lot of investment. The rest I'll leave to the Commission Chair to deal with, and thank you very much for this opportunity. I ask to be recused.
Thank you, DM. You are excused as indicated at the beginning of the meeting. Thank you very much. Commissioners, I think the commissioner who introduced all of you, I actually wanted that you indicate, because you are going to have to manage your responses so that you don't use me to manage that, and because you know who will answer what. Are you able to come in quickly and then indicate before I look at the hands?
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for all the questions, and thank you for engaging with this critically. So I think from our side also, it helps a lot in knowing that the committee is engaging with this deeply, like they are engaging with. So I'm going to facilitate our response from our commissions. Like I said, I'm not alone. I'm with the chairs of the different working groups that we have in the commission. So firstly, I would like to allow the chair of the governance workstream, more especially to address the questions raised by Honorable Manyi, and then I'll then followed by the chair of the economy workstream. Thanks.
Through you, Chair. Thanks, Commissioner Ramazete. I will start with some of the questions and comments made by Honorable Manyi. I will start by saying before the 10-year review, we have done this is just a presentation. There is a detailed review that we have done that talks to the finer details of the conclusions that we came to. But even before this one, we have done some 12 years of detailed work and proposals as to how we can address. We're not just saying this, here are the problems and we have not moved, but we're also proposing solutions. And maybe the Secretariat in the NPC can make the full report available to you, Chair, and the members, so that we can get the final details of the review. Even the review that we have done in 2020, this was a build up on the 2020 review that we did. I think Honorable Tobias has also talked to our role as the National Planning Commission. We are not meant to be the implementers, but we are an advisory body. So we advise the state. And in terms of whether the NDP is a plan or a vision, it was adopted as a plan. We will continue to call it a plan. It remains our plans. It remains our lodestar until we've got something else, if we so wish as a nation. In terms of how we were meant to achieve the NDP, since the NDP does not have the implementation plan, the MTSF was meant to be, it is meant to be exactly that, break down the NDP into 5 years kind of intervals so that we can eventually achieve what we would like to achieve by by 2020. In all our reviews, even in the current one, we have highlighted coordination as a problem. We continue as a state to spend our resources haphazardly and not coordinated. And that is something that we have continuously raised with the presidency, and that needs attention. On the issue of the independent panel, we have not really gotten into the details of the independent panel and as to who did not attend the meeting or who did not convene the meeting. But we looked at how we missed it, how the gaps as to having had early detection to avoid what has happened in July, and how we fell short as the state. And I must say that the idea of the review is not necessarily to point fingers. As experts and as professionals, we are here to help and assist government to better South Africa. As to why we need the NPC, the president also has continuously, even recently, said it is needed. We continue to provide advice to cabinet and to the state. I think Honorable McGlover had asked a question of if we are part-time. Yes, we are part-time. We're not full-time commissioners. That's how we are structured. Has cabinet engaged with the review? Yes, we have had a few engagement with cabinet, and a special cabinet was set up. We have had a few engagements as well with the president on the review. So so cabinet is well aware of this, and we have had to present the findings of the review to cabinet. Has the Planning Commission looked at how to change the down spiral? As I said in the review and the detailed review, we do propose measures, and in all our other published documents that we have, and most of them are on the website of the NPC, we do come up and with proposals of the solution. But by and large, the commission are not we are not the doers. The commission are not the implementers. We do advise, we give advice out there, and just monitor if the implementers and the technocrats are actually taking what we advise into and implement it. And Chair, I must also say, as much as the picture doesn't look that well, South Africa does not operate in a vacuum. We are part of a global everything. The economy has been on a down spiral, and we are not insulated from that. We have had our own fair share of COVID. Of course, we made mistakes as a country in how we managed the funds that were set aside for COVID, but generally the world economy and recession has been real, and therefore it is not. It's probably a bit unfair to try to hold a nation that is, I call a young democracy, and expect that we should have blossomed when globally it's not really practical. We do admit that there are things that have not been done properly, and hence we come up with recommendations as to how to fix that. Chair, thank you. I'll let Commissioner Naidu deal with the other matters that talks to the economy. Thank you.
Chairperson, I'm happy to come in now if it's agreeable
Yes,
to
please.
you.
Please proceed, Commissioner.
All right, thanks very much, and thanks again for all the questions and engagements. I certainly think it would be a good thing if we also have a chance to
You are muted. We can't hear you, Commissioner Naidu.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
You are saying if we can have a chance to do what? Yes, we can hear you now. We lost you there.
Good. Okay, so I was saying given the amount of work that has been done over the past 10 to 12 years by the Planning Commission, it would be good to also look at how members of the committee could also get further reviews and presentations on some of the work that has been done in these different things. Because I think there's quite a lot that has been done, and obviously what you're seeing now is a very summarized version of some of the key issues. Chair, if I can maybe just deal with a few things. So the first is the 2012 NDP, the one that was adopted, said that for the country to afford to achieve all the things that are set out in the NDP, the 20-year plan, we needed a growth rate to be 5.4% a year. So the 5.4% GDP growth is our ability to pay for the NDP. So at the core issue is, therefore, how do we get that? Because that then enables us to have, both from the taxpayer point of view, the fiscal space, but from the business point of view, having the economic growth to go and create the jobs and generate the investments, what would drive that? So the 5.4% GDP growth target that the NDP projected from its economic models in 2012 must always be in the front of our minds, because how do we achieve that? And then one of the questions was, well, what do we do to turn that around to get this GDP level of growth? Because the economy, as we know, has not been growing over the past 10 years. Now, I can say that clearly from a point of view, if you look at Eskom, Transnet, those alone are probably costing us, Chairperson, about 3% of GDP. Just the non-performance there. Other network infrastructure is also contributing to subtract from that number, and other issues which the Deputy Minister has mentioned and which are dealt with in some detail. So there are those things which are obviously holding back our ability to drive for the NDP. But I think it is also important to bear in mind that many things are still positive. So, for instance, if you look at a sector like tourism, we have grown by 150% again in the last 2 years. Substantial for jobs and obviously income to the country. We still find that there is a lot of inward investment into the country. So, for instance, you would have seen that BMW, for example, brought their export program into the country to make the BMW X3. Other than China, we're the only country in the world that BMW actually makes those vehicles to export from. So we still have a lot of potential. And, in certain sectors like non-banking finance, things to do with cell phones, we are actually a world leader in a whole range of things. And that's why if someone were to say, is Africa a failed state or something like that, certainly from an economic perspective and economic infrastructure perspective of potential, we would not be there by any measure of means, because a failed state means you've lost control and you're not able to turn things around. But in most economic programs, even where we are not doing very well, it is very much things that can be turned around. So maybe just to say that. Now, Chair, we in terms of the NDP review, many of the core issues can be found in page 26 and 27 of the final version of the document. And we also set out in section 4.2 of the main proposal and the document, which will be sent to you, but it's in the final version that the Planning Commission put out, were the economic proposals. And I'm just going to highlight maybe a couple of those things which I think deal with some of the questions which have been raised as a group. So the NDP in 2012, has many good proposals, and a core issue was the main driver of implementation was the state. So in that regard, even though the NDP is really about all of society, not just government, we could probably say the NDP was maybe fairly state-centric in its proposals. And what we've done as commissioners who have mostly started in 2022, beginning of 2022, that's the third commission. So commissioners like myself, and most of them have only come in the last year and a bit, there's been a lot of engagement as part of this review with key sectors. So one of the questions was, who have we been engaging with? We've engaged in terms of agriculture, mining, manufacturing, a whole range of sectors, people involved, the institutions involved in putting agreements together or driving investments. Same thing with the DFIs, DBSA, the IDC, and a whole range of bodies like that to understand what's happening. And we've also gone through about 25 economic models to begin to see the things that people are saying, also in terms of how they're backed up by the numbers. Now, I suppose the core thing really is that what comes through is, given the weaknesses in state capacity, and I mentioned Eskom, Transnet, and a lot of the network infrastructure that is key, and other things, that what we are proposing is that we must really switch to a more partnership-led economic growth model. So it's not so much about the state driving the implementation, because the capacity has declined in Transnet and Eskom and so on. So our focus for the next 7 to 8 years, if we really want to make progress towards the 2030 plans, while we rebuild state capacity, we must get more partnerships implemented. So that's really the core of the way forward on the economic programs. And if you go to page 27 of the review, what the NPC talks about is a 10-point economy roadmap. And a lot of those details can also be found in the December 2020 review, where there was like 100 pages of proposals and details in terms of what could be taken forward, particularly by the public sector, but also broader by the investment community. And when we put these proposals together, we also had to look at things which were plausible and could be done from an implementation point of view, because we also don't want to, as a country, be proposing things that cannot be implemented. So I can just highlight a few of those points. The first set of points is really for the state to support its engagements with business, particularly on the reforms and in terms of Eskom, rail, and ports, which, as I mentioned, are really a big constraint on economic growth. There is already a lot happening in regard to that, as I think all the committee members will know. And it's just that those proposals need to be taken forward to implementation. If we can unblock some of those things, it could really add 2 to 3 points to GDP growth, which really then means we can make progress on a range of other NDP things. The second set of issues really deals with these sector master plans. Earlier I spoke about tourism, but a number of sectors have huge potential for growth, and the state can play a very supportive, facilitating role. A lot of jobs can be unlocked. So even if you take an issue like Eskom, what it has sort of heralded is we are also now a leader in the world in renewables, because we've been forced to bring on a lot of renewable and solar PV and so on, which means we can now export that as a success to the rest of the world in terms of our own products and services can now go out from that sector. And there are about 19 sectors like that have been identified. Government is working with some of those, and obviously we want more of those to be accelerated. Then the third is, and it's obviously one of the key things, that there's a lot of investment opportunities to rebuild our infrastructure, again through partnerships. And the NDP proposed, including in its call to action, a national infrastructure implementation plan, which is really about how do we leverage the DBSA and institutions like that, but really make it a much bigger thing to bring in pension funds and private investors, almost as a South Africa infrastructure fund that can now drive big investments we need to make. Because we know it's not just things like Eskom and rail and ports, it's also water, digital infrastructure. A whole range of these things require big investments where the government will not have the fiscal space, and it's also a way to really build national programs out of it. So we talk quite a bit about that. The next thing, of course, is really around how do we develop our digital infrastructure because that has a huge impact on townships and schools. And again, that would be part of an infrastructure build program, which will really position, the country and youth and communities spatially. So, because obviously digital infrastructure means that you can do a much more economic value work, even from areas outside of the urban center. So that's a huge opportunity as well. And we do focus a lot on the need to target youth employment initiatives, because even while you're doing this, you have to make sure youth are being prepared as much as possible for the future. And one of the things in the document is really about how do you get youth more into private sector jobs, and including in all these investment opportunities that I've just mentioned. And clearly, even as we do this, we have to look at how we rebuild the public sector. And I think Commissioner Molokwane also mentioned then the framework, the national framework on professionalizing the public service, but just generally how we bring more skills into the public sector, which will include things like volunteer programs and other things to really get people to come and support. And the last and final thing, because the NPC is not a state body. It's really there to work with the government and support, obviously, the 5-year medium-term strategic framework of departments, but also influence the medium-term expenditure framework of National Treasury, where the money goes to support the 5-year plans. So that's the government, but it's also there to work with other stakeholders, including business, labor, and so on. So the one thing we did propose as a final point was about how we need to ensure we have a collaborative process of reviewing economic policies and our progress, because, Chair, if you don't agree even on the facts, like, what our levels of savings are and how much does government spending create a multiplier effect in the economy, and all of these things are models, if we can't even agree on what causes what, it's very hard to now come together with key proposals. The challenge we have is our proposals, if they are not collectively agreed between government and the private sector, Chair, we then struggle to get the money and the regulations to work together. And ultimately, the economy functions on the basis of a partnership between the state and investors. That's how it works. So all of these things they talk to that. So, Chair, with that, let me just stop. I'm sure there might be more detailed questions, but I think that just gives an overview of what's really in the last few years and what's come through this review. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Rametsetse, is that all the members, commissioners you have identified? In the meantime, honorable members, are there any follow-ups from your side? I note Honorable Mani for follow-up, Honorable Yabo for follow-up, and Honorable Tobias as well for follow-up. Over to you, Honorable Mani.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I note the responses, but I was disappointed by the response to the question about why do we need the commission, because I think the response I got was actually a political response. The response I expected from technical people, from technical people that are around this table here today, was the response that was going to be very analytical to say, well, look, this is the role that we play. If we don't do this, this is what happens, etc., etc. Just to explain, to say, in the absence of this, this is where the gap comes. But to just be told that we exist because the president says so, I think that's a political response. The second thing, Chair, I wanted to find out is that whether the commission has got any clear proposals that it has put, whether they've analyzed to say, or they can give us a report to say, actually, as advisors, these are the advices that we gave. And of these advices that we gave, those that we implemented, these were the results. These were the advices that we gave, they were rejected. As a result of this rejection, maybe some of these things would have been avoided. I think out of that, Chair, I will then be able to answer myself actually to say whether the commission, what to call it, there's a need for this commission or not. But right now, what I've just heard is really not convincing. It's just shifting around of paper, playing around with information. You've got an executive authority. People just exist. And as I'm still sitting here, I still don't quite understand why they do exist. I understand the intention, but maybe it was a good intention. But on execution, I'm not really seeing anything. I mean, this failure to achieve NDP has been a constant thing coming over a period. It's not like a brand new invention. It's been failing. What is it that the NPC has been doing? Where did they raise this? Where did they complain that, hello, we are missing the targets and all that? Yeah, so thank you, Chair, but the responses are in a nutshell not inspiring. Chairperson, at some point I'll be ducking out to the mini plenary. Please don't say it's abuse. I tried to stick it out this time around. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Manyi. Your apology for plenary is also noted, Honorable Yabo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Without succumbing to the temptation to want to respond to my honorable colleague, Manyi, I will save to say national planning commissions, by their nature, are advisory and consultative. The executive authority rests with those who are elected. Those who contest elections carry the mandate of the people to intervene decisive or to fail while doing it. The option remains. And the true measure of whether a plan subsists and succeeds in what it intended to do and achieve rests on the authority to implement. And so, to play devil's advocate, I'd say the Planning Commission is correct to continue doing its work in analyzing the patterns, seeing the system for what it is, bringing the truth to the fore. And I will relate this to a famous quote, tell no lies to the masses of our people, claim no easy victories. And this is what the Planning Commission needs to do a thorough, expeditious work based on empirical evidence, not anecdotes, and present such to the leadership that is elected by South Africans, and leave the decision-making to those who are elected. The one intervention I need to make is that there needs to be a consideration of the redistribution of income in order to respond to the Gini coefficient that is on a rampant spiral. We need to have models proposed that speak to the responses needed by government to stem the tide of this growing gap between the haves and the have-nots. The philosopher Rousseau, who lived in the period of the Great French Revolution, and I refer to the French Revolution in the same way I would refer to the Civil War in the premise of the United States of America, the premise of the birth of the United States of America, and that these countries went through revolution themselves. And the aftermath of that is that they then created systems they thought would work best for their own societies. And Rousseau says that if the poor continue to worsen, the state of the poor, and I paraphrase, the state of the poor continues to worsen, the poor will be left with no choice but to one day eat the rich. Not steal from the rich, not take from the rich, but to eat the rich. when the state of hunger amongst the poor is exacerbated to a point where they are left with no options, the poor will eat the rich. And the rise in the violent crime statistics in our country bear testimony to that. That when people are left with no option in relation to income generation and the equitable distribution of such, they will begin to eat the rich. The death toll of those who are deemed to be of the middle and upper middle classes and of the wealth classes is beginning to be staggering. We have now occurrences of crime which even affect the tourists, because those who come from European countries to our country are referred to as tourists, and those who come from African countries are referred to as foreign nationals. It's fine. We see those things, the nuances. We see the impact even on tourists who are gunned down while visiting our country. Some of whom come here to do what they are known for, sporting activities, stars in this or that. This is the effect of the Gini coefficient that is stubbornly increasing. The National Planning Commission needs to speak to interventions of income redistribution. We also would like to see, Chair, this matter of reindustrialization of our economy being spoken to and coming through quite strongly from the propositions made by the National Planning Commission. And of course, informed by empirical data that they would have gathered, a comparative analysis of other developmental states across the globe and what systems would have worked for them. The Asian tigers come as an example to mind. Japan come as an example to mind. We need to be able to see peer for peer, like for like, what it is that the South African state can do to eliminate the threat of a growing Gini coefficient, because it speaks to the livelihood of the most base of the people of this country. That's what I wanted to speak to, Chair, in this intervention that they requested to make. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you for the follow-up, Honorable Yabo. Honorable Tobias.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, there's only one issue that I really want to insist on. I want to understand from the Commission, now that the projections on the outer years of the economic growth were not achieved, what are the strategies that are being put in place to ensure that growth, especially what was the projected outcome, the 5% growth? Even if we don't reach it, we should be able to say, this is how we're going to advise. And this is the points of investment we want government to zoom into, so that we can track that part going forward in terms of what will be entailed in the medium-term frameworks and the strategic plans going forward. Just that, I just want it succinct, because they should hold a view that in the outer years, what will be the growth like if we do 1, 2, 3? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Tobias. On that, Commissioner Ramatete and your team, any quick responses to those follow-ups that you want to connect with?
Thank you, Chair. So I'll first like to bring in Commissioner Hope, just to touch base on some few things on the NDP and its implementation. And then after that, I'll follow with Abinaidu to also add on some of the few things that our colleague was speaking about now.
Yeah, thank you very much, colleagues, and good morning. I just want to make just a comment and trying to respond to the question about the role for NPC. Colleagues will understand that NDP, it is a master plan. And if you're familiar with the hierarchies of plans, you will understand that a master plan very often does not have much details in terms of the implementation. But what a master plan does, it set out what we ought to see in the next 20, 30 years to come. Now, the way the NDP has been set, it is set from that perspective to say in the next 30 years, this is what we are hoping to achieve. But now who's supposed to be implementing that? So each and every department, you will realize that if you walk into NDP, you look into NDP, each and every department has a role to play from that NDP. There's something that they can pick from NDP to implement, to able to assist us to achieve the NDP. Therefore, that's also speak directly with the role that the role that commissioners play, because they have come up with the NDP, which has been approved. Now, the question is, how do we get there? And the monitoring part of it to say, we are not going to reach the target. This is how far we are. We've been convening with different levels, different people at a different level. This will include your local government as well, to say, you now have DDM for argument's sake. How far are you? How is that linking to the NDP? By when we're going to see some changes? So I think that is where our role is. Our role is, you may not have seen it like coming straight to you, but we have been engaging, using our power to convene at different level and conscientize people to say, you should be doing things like this, because of course we have to be dealing with different government department, different spheres of government, which are supposed to be working towards assisting us to achieve this NDP. So that will be just my quick remarks, Ramses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Hope Magidimisha. So, Chair, the next person I would like to bring forward is to touch on the issue of the growth in the outer years. Ravi Naidu, just to add on that question. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Commissioner. So, yeah, I think the point is that was asked by the Honorable Tobias was, South Africa is not achieving the 5%. What is it then that we have to do exactly? So, the NDP did say that we need to achieve 5.4% and per year, and we know we are chairperson of the committee. We have been consistently below 1% for the last 10 years or so. So we are far behind. Now, two points to make on that. The first is, what then do we do? And of course, everything that must be done, certainly from a planning commission point of view, has to be rational, evidence-based, and the opposite of a knee-jerk reaction. And therefore, we would advise that any economic intervention by government must be measured against how its impact will be positive in terms of increasing rates of economic growth. Because, again, the NDP was very clear from the beginning that we have to get a certain number to be able to do the things we want to do. And there are unfortunately very few shortcuts that can be found to the fact that we have to raise levels of economic growth. So whatever we do, even in the short term, you would have to then ask, how is this going to increase, if not now, but later, levels of economic growth? And if the answer is, well, it's probably going to, on the balance of probabilities, it's going to reduce economic growth, then you should not do it. So what do we do now then? Well, we are in the next 3 years. That really is a reasonable time frame to look at with certain interventions. We will not be reaching 5% GDP growth probably in the next 3 years. We are therefore needing to look at something more reasonable. And therefore, the number we should be aiming for over the next 3 years is something in the range of 2% or 3% a year, which is quite achievable. As I say, the biggest things holding us back there are our speed of reforms on Eskom, Transnet, the rail and port, and so on. So just making progress with those committees that government has already, if we could fast track that, we'll go a long way to achieving 2 to 3%, which then causes benefits elsewhere. Chairperson, the other thing which is very important is the Planning Commission is also, and there are active engagements on these, looking at how do we reduce the frictional points in the economy that are holding us back on things like SMEs. So again, the national plan really said most of our jobs would come from SMEs, not from big companies. But SMEs are held back by a whole range of regulations and red tape, and that then means they cannot operate very efficiently. They can't grow, and that goes from issues to do with tax, to issues to do with business registration, to issues to do with the extension of collective bargaining agreements, a whole range of things that could be done and are specified elsewhere that could be quite helpful to unlocking small businesses, businesses and townships and so on. So there's that. And the next thing which we think will make a big difference there are partnership agreements at different stages in key sectors. And those also need to be accelerated, where the government can sign off, put in a small amount of support, not even necessarily financial support, but really on the regulatory side that will help those sectors to grow and again attract investment. So we're really not aiming, I think, realistically to achieve 5.4% next year or this year. That's now off the table. It's a much more modest, doable target of between 2 to 3%, and it deals with those issues that I mentioned. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Naidu. I think from our side, Chair, we've tried as much to respond to the questions that the members have raised, but maybe just to reflect on what Honorable Bafuze Yabo was saying in terms of the system overhaul. So I'm responsible for the strategy within the commission. So as a commission, when we were first appointed, we had our Lekgotla where we brainstorm on some of the things that we can actually influence in the long term. So meaning that we adopted a theory of change approach where we looked at the ultimate outcomes where we want to go to. So meaning that we have to align those with the National Development Plan. For instance, if we are saying we want to achieve a quality health care for all, we want to improve the living conditions of people and the well-being of people. So those are some of the things that we're looking at, but not only that, but we're also looking at things that we can do in the short to medium term. For instance, part of that is implementing some of the recommendations that are coming from us in terms of what we bring forth with regards to this review, as well as ensuring that we address the inefficiencies in the systems and also address the issues of coordination, as some of the colleagues have also addressed too. So those are some of the things that we are doing internally as NPC. So we are enhancing the way we function, and we believe that with these interventions, it can go a long way in changing the living conditions and the well-being of South Africans overall. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramatsetse, and thank you to your entire team of commissioners. Let's thank the DM, our honorable members, for your robust engagement. I think, as described by Honorable Tobias, the role of the NPC is very critical in almost setting up a vision, playing that advisory role. I think as a way forward in accepting the proposals and the call to action, it would be important that matters ventilated here today, put on the table, are taken into account as a way of enhancing and reaching both those aspects. And given your role, our focus as the portfolio committee, we would be interested first that you would have post this session, you would have an interaction with the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. We would be interested, and the Secretariat and yourself would have taken notes of the issues here, because ours is on the issues that you have put on the table. We would be very much interested as to how those find practical grounding in the whole of government. And that practical grounding in the whole of government has to be coordinated by this particular Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. And so we're going to be sitting on them as a portfolio committee. There will be a time when we would want to track if these were proposals made and a call to action, how are we ensuring that these are factored in? Because part of the challenge of the review you have made has to do with the fact that, and the review doesn't speak to that, but it's the fact that you didn't have a particular robust oversight on all of these, including yourself, the department. And I think it's going to be incumbent on us so that the next review is able to reflect and is influenced by that serious oversight that takes into account all the converging wherewithals and resources that are needed to push to a better trajectory of where the country must be. And so that's going to be both part of our legacy report, but also, and we hope that in the 7th Parliament, this committee would be seized with these matters in a more serious manner than the afterthought manner it was dealt with before we were established. And I've seen the notes you have written about the continuing work you do on redistribution, advisory notes, and so on. We hope that those will be put and packaged together, and so that when we certainly are not going to see you in the next review, that I can assure you. There's going to be those kind of milestones that we determine that check progress, where progress is, both from the vision setting, planning point of view, as well as how all of those issues are grounded. Was at the end of the day, we exist, certainly for us as elected representatives, to make an impact on everything else we say, not for the sake of engaging in a discourse. I want to appreciate the interventions that members would have made today, given the nature of the presentation that we have. So we lift issues up, we point where we think there are critical gaps, and I hope you would have noted those. Otherwise, thank you very much to all of you, honorable members. And today we don't have minutes. This will be the last item. And the time now is almost 11:30. This is where we're going to adjourn our meeting. Thank you very much.
Long live the chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Recording stopped.